Hi everyone, welcome to Mr. H on YouTube. Today we are going to talk about the World War II Asia theater and how the United States was eventually dragged into World War II, and how the Pacific theater was set up to become one of the bloodiest theaters of war in human history. If you haven't already, go ahead and like and subscribe to Mr. H on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that bell button for notifications on when I release my YouTube videos. We are in the works of a fun YouTube video, especially for all the students who are missing out on school, and I hope you guys stick around to watch that one. So let's get into the Asia theater and World War II. Let's talk first about Japan before World War II. Japan was an empire. It had been an imperial power after World War One with its conquests of Korea and Formosa, which is modern day Taiwan. It was governed by the emperor. However, the emperor was not really in charge. It was by the end of World War One, the military began playing a higher function into the government of Japan. Pardon me. And when it came to the military, they were aggressive and expansionist. Uh, this was not merely just so that they could guarantee that they would have jobs in the Japanese military and navy, but it was also due to Japan's need for resources. Japan is not a economically and geographically blessed nation, and they are constantly in need of industrial goods. They're in need of the natural resources that power industrial revolution. For example, oil, rubber, steel, coal. All of these materials were lacking on Japan's home islands, which led, of course, to the colonization of the different areas that had those natural resources, such as Taiwan, such as Korea. But more was needed. So Japan began to look outwards for more. And the most I guess closest but also the easiest target was China after World War One. China had lost its emperor and had been split up, technically under the rule of the Chinese Republic, but the Chinese Republic really had no power. So China was divided up into three um, several, not just three, but several different warlords who rule different parts of China. The two biggest warlords or groups in China were the Guomindang, which was the nationalist led by Chiang Kai shek, and also the communists led by Mao Zedong. But Japan is able to move into Manchuria and then slowly move down and attack China throughout the 1936, 37, and 38. This, of course, leads to the attack on the Chinese capital of Nanjing and the horrible atrocities that the Japanese army um, uh, inflicted on that city. It is still a controversial topic with Japan. But of course, this continues, and this attacks and atrocities leads to further strain on the relationship between the United States and Japan. The United States had actually been a primary source of oil for Japan. And by 1940 and 1941, the U.S. begins settling into an embargo of Japan, shuttering oil sales to Japan. This was one of the primary reasons that Japan began to formulate its attack on the United States. The United States was not going to be the only target of Japan's attacks. Britain's colonies, as well as the other Allied colonies, would all soon fall to Japan. But of course, the most famous would be the attack on Pearl Harbor. So on the morning of December 7th, 1941, planes of the Imperial Japanese Navy attack the U.S. military base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. This was the home of the Pacific Fleet for the United States. The thousands of sailors lost during the battle was a devastating blow. Most famously, the sinking of the USS Arizona and other battleships on Battleship Row was a colossal defeat for the U.S. Navy and for America. December 8th, Franklin Roosevelt declares that December 7th would be a date that would live in infamy. But all was not lost for the United States. While Japan had led a truly stunning attack on the United States, there was still a possibility of victory for the United States. The United States had a high production and industrial capacity, but also uh, the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor was not a complete success because three of the U.S. aircraft carriers were actually out of the harbor on patrol and assignment when the attack happened. They would go on to lead the charge in the counterattack against the Japanese Empire. This leads to the Battle of the Coral Sea. At the Battle of the Coral Sea, the United States scores not so much a victory, but a first retaliation against the Japanese Navy. Some U.S. carriers were so damaged that they had to be sent back to the mainland to be repaired, but they were refitted and re-outfitted by 1942, which allowed for the United States to attack and fight against the Japanese at Midway. Midway was a U.S. military base that was a small island in the Pacific Sea, and the Japanese had hoped to capture Midway to cut off the U.S.'s ability to attack other islands in the Pacific. This was a massive, massive naval and aircraft war, and it was primarily carrier planes that attacked each other. And of course, the battle was won with the sinking of four of Japan's aircraft carriers. Battle of Midway is extremely significant as the victory at Midway did not destroy the Japanese Navy, but it did allow for U.S. naval dominance in the Pacific War. And that was a naval dominance from now on the United States would carry all the way to the end of the war. You would not have famous battles such as Okinawa or Guadalcanal or Iwo Jima without U.S. naval dominance. And the Battle of Midway cemented that. This goes back, if I can go back in time just briefly, the Japanese general staff was very pleased, but one stood after the Battle of Pearl Harbor and was reported to have said that Japan had awoken a sleeping giant. And indeed, he proved to be prophetic as the United States would attack with a full fury throughout the next 4 years and eventually resulting in Japan's ultimate defeat. But what do you think? What questions do you have about the war in the Pacific? Go ahead and comment below with your questions, and we will see you all next time. Have a great day.